Well, after 2 days, the BRICS summit has just wrapped up now in India, creating an alternative global lender and stepping away from the dollar as a reserve currency, all among the main objectives. In New Delhi is RT's Priya Sreeram.
The leaders from the 5 leading emerging economies in the world, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, are all here in New Delhi for the 4th annual BRICS summit. Russian President Dmitry Medvedev held a bilateral meeting with the Indian Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. There have been a lot of things on the agenda. One of the main themes of this year's summit is how these growing economic powers are also starting to have more political clout on major international issues like Syria. And again, we saw Russia and China saying that they back a ceasefire in Syria. They want peace in Syria, but they don't expect President Assad to step down. They don't want him to step down, like many of the Western leaders have said. Let's take a listen to what the Russian president had to say.
One of the priorities for BRICS for the years to come should be the strengthening and key role of the UN Security Council in maintaining international peace and security, and also ensuring that the UN is not used as a cover for regime change and unilateral actions to resolve conflict situations.
And that was another thing that all of these 5 leaders talked about, reforming the United Nations. Another point that everyone was talking about was Iran and how sanctions are not going to work on Iran. These 5 countries are expected in the next 8 years to make up 50% of the global GDP. Even earlier this year, all of the BRICS countries were discussing potentially bailing out Europe from its financial crisis. One of the major things on the agenda was talking about a potential BRICS basket currency that could serve as an alternative to the American dollar or the euro. Today, all the 5 leaders signed an agreement to actually give out loans in their local currencies, which is another move that they're thinking about, moving away from the dollar and moving away from the euro. Another huge thing on the agenda here in Delhi was the idea of a joint BRICS bank that could serve as an alternative to the Western-led traditional financial institutions like the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank.
And just a bit earlier here on the programme on RT, I spoke to Dr. Sreeram Chaulia, Vice Dean at the Jindal School of International Affairs. He believes institutions like the IMF and the World Bank have frankly outlived their usefulness.
The problem with vying for some kind of crumbs from the high table is that it still depends upon the mercy and the munificence of the former superpowers, who are now just great powers. The point is, in a multipolar world, I think it's better to launch your own initiatives and to show that you have the initiative to build your own institutions rather than to beg for a few more voting shares and a few more places in the managerial or the boards of the Bretton Woods institutions. Because the Bretton Woods institutions, I don't think, can be reformed from within. They have failed, so therefore it's better to either abolish it or to replace it with a new institution. So this is where I think the BRICS Development Bank comes in. This summit here in Delhi, they have really shown that they have the capability to forge ahead with new plans, new ideas, and new institutions in order to govern the planet with a new ideology and a completely new functional basis for organizing economic life on the planet.